All right, friends. Today we're going to look at a little sentence, and we're going to see if we can spot any mistakes in it. Here's the sentence. Today morning I woke up late. Now, read that sentence out loud to yourselves. Does it sound a little bit off? Maybe a little clunky? That's because there are a couple of things we can fix to make it sound much smoother and clearer. Let's look at the very beginning of the sentence. Today morning. We have the word today followed by a comma, and then the word morning. Think about what today means. It refers to the current day, right? And what is morning? It's a part of the day. So, when we say today morning, we're essentially saying this day morning. It's a little bit like saying this car vehicle. Car is already a type of vehicle, so we don't really need to say vehicle again. Similarly, morning is already understood to be a part of today. We don't usually need to use both words right next to each other like that. The most natural way to say this would be to pick just one of them. We could say, today I woke up late. This tells us that the lateness happened on the current day. Or we could say, this morning I woke up late. This focuses specifically on the morning part of the day. Both of these options sound much better, don't they? Now let's go back to that comma we saw. Today morning. Remember, commas are like little pauses in our writing. They help us separate ideas or parts of a sentence. In this case, the comma between today and morning isn't really necessary. There's no need for a pause there. We're talking about the morning of today, and those two words go naturally together. Think of it this way. If you were telling a friend about waking up late, would you naturally pause between today and morning? Probably not. You'd likely just say today morning or this morning without any break. So, the first common error in our example is using both today and morning together when only one is needed. The second common error is putting a comma between them when there shouldn't be one. The best way to fix this sentence is to choose either today or morning and get rid of the comma. So, we could correctly write, today I woke up late. This morning I woke up late. Both of these sentences are clear, concise, and grammatically correct. They tell us exactly what we need to know without any extra words or unnecessary pauses. Does that make sense to everyone? Remember, when you're writing, think about whether the words you're using are necessary and if you need a pause, represented by a comma, between them. This will help you write clearer and more natural-sounding sentences. Let's look at another short question today. Here it is. What's the difference? Read that question out loud. Does it sound quite right? Maybe a little bit off? That's because there's a small but important mistake in the way it's worded. Let's break down the question. We start with what's, which is a short way of saying what is. So the question is really asking, what is this something? Now, let's look at the word different. What does different mean? Can anyone tell me? Yes, that's right. Different is an adjective. An adjective is a word that describes a noun. It tells us more about something. For example, we can say, this apple is different from that apple. Here, different describes the apple. But in our question, what is the different? We have the word, the right before different. The word, the, is a definite article, and it usually comes before a noun. A noun is a person, place, thing, or idea. So we have what is the, and we need a noun to come after the. But different is an adjective, not a noun. It's describing something, but it's not the thing itself. Think of it like this. Imagine you have two toys, a car and a truck. If someone asks you, what's the red, that doesn't really make sense, does it? Red is describing the color, but it's not the name of the thing itself. In our question, we're trying to find out what the difference is between two things. The word we need here is difference. Difference is a noun. It's the name of the state of being not the same. So instead of asking what's the different, the correct way to ask is, what's the difference? Or we could also say, what is the difference? Both of these questions are grammatically correct, and they ask what we actually want to know. What is the point where things are not the same? So, the common error here is using the adjective different when we need the noun difference. Remember, adjectives describe things, while nouns are the names of things. In this case, we're looking for the name of the thing that tells us how two things are not the same, and that word is difference. Does everyone understand the difference between different and difference in this context? It's a small change, but it makes a big difference in making our sentences correct and clear. Let's look at our next sentence today. I met John 2 years before. Read that sentence carefully. It sounds like it's telling us about something that happened in the past, right? The words met and 2 years both point to a time that has already passed. Now, let's think about the word before. What does before mean? It means earlier than a certain time or event. For example, if I say, I ate breakfast before coming to school, before tells you that the breakfast happened earlier than the event of me arriving at school. In our sentence, I met John 2 years before, we know that meeting John happened in the past, specifically 2 years ago. But the question is, before what? Before what specific point in time are we talking about? Think of it like drawing a timeline. We have a point on the timeline that represents now, the present moment. The sentence tells us about an event, meeting John, that happened 2 years in the past. So, we can mark that point on our timeline. But the word before needs another point of reference on that timeline. It needs to tell us that the meeting happened 2 years prior to something else. Sometimes, the something else is implied or understood from the conversation. For example, if we were talking about another event that happened more recently, like I went to the park last week, and then I said, I met John 2 years before, you might understand that I meant 2 years before I went to the park. However, when we just say, I met John 2 years before on its own, it leaves us wondering, 2 years before what? It's like saying, I arrived early. Early compared to what? Early compared to the start time? Early compared to everyone else? We need that reference point to fully understand. So, the common error here is using the word before without a clear reference point in the past. While the sentence isn't always strictly wrong, it's often incomplete and can be confusing. To make the sentence clearer and more precise, we need to add that reference point. Here are a few ways we could fix it. I met John 2 years before that incident. Here, that incident is our reference point. I met John 2 years before I started this job. Here, starting this job is the reference point. I met John 2 years before my trip to Europe. Here, my trip to Europe is the reference point. I met John 2 years ago. In this case, we replace before with ago, which automatically refers to the time before the present moment. This is a very common and clear way to express past time. So, remember, when you use the word before to talk about the past, make sure you have a clear idea of what you're saying it happened before. If you don't have a specific event in mind, using the word ago is often a better choice when you're talking about a duration of time in the past relative to the present. Does everyone understand why just saying, I met John 2 years before can be a little vague? It's all about having a clear point of reference in time. All right, let's take a look at our next sentence on the board. This is a 6 months course. Read that sentence to yourselves. It sounds like it makes sense, right? We're talking about a course that lasts for a certain amount of time. But there's a small grammatical rule that we're not quite following here. Let's break down the sentence. We have this is a, which is pretty straightforward. Then we have 6 months, and finally course. We all know what a course is. It's a set of lessons or a program of study. And 6 months tells us how long this course lasts. Now let's focus on 6 months. Notice anything a little unusual about it? We have the number 6 followed by the word months, and there's a hyphen in between. That hyphen is actually a good clue that 6 months is acting like one big adjective to describe the course. Think about other adjectives we might use to describe a course. We could say this is a long course, or this is an interesting course. In these cases, long and interesting are clearly adjectives describing the noun course. When we use a phrase like 6 months to describe the course, it's also acting like an adjective. It's telling us the duration of the course. Now here's the important rule. When we use a noun like months as part of an adjective to describe something else, we usually use the singular form of that noun. Imagine if we were talking about a container that holds a certain amount of liquid. We might say this is a 2-liter bottle, not this is a 2 liters bottle. Even though there are 2 liters, when liter is used as part of the adjective 2 liter to describe the bottle, it stays singular. The same rule applies to time. When we say 6 months to describe the course, the word months should actually be in its singular form, which is month. So, The correct way to write our sentence would be, this is a 6-month course. Notice the S is gone from months, and we keep the hyphen because it helps show that 6-month is acting as one combined adjective describing the course. Why do we do this? Well, it's just a convention in English grammar. When we use a noun of measurement like time, length, or quantity to modify another noun, we generally keep it in the singular form when it's part of a compound adjective. Think of other examples. We might say a 10-year-old boy, not a 10-years-old boy. We could say a 5-mile race, not a 5 miles race. We could talk about a 3-day weekend, not a 3 days weekend. In all these cases, the nouns year, mile, and day are singular when they are used as part of an adjective phrase describing boy, race, and weekend, respectively. So, the common error in our example is using the plural form months when it should be the singular form month, because it's part of a compound adjective describing the noun course. Remember to keep those nouns of measurement singular when they're acting like adjectives. Let's look at our next example. Thank you. I really enjoyed. This is a very common way to express gratitude and say that you had a good time. However, there's a small but important piece missing from the second sentence. I really enjoyed. Let's think about the word enjoyed. What does it mean to enjoy something? It means to take pleasure or satisfaction in something. When you enjoy something, there's usually something that you are enjoying, right? Think about it like this. If I said I ate, you would probably ask, you ate what? The verb ate needs an object, something that was eaten, to make the sentence complete and fully understandable. The verb enjoy is very similar in this way. It's what we call a transitive verb. A transitive verb is a verb that needs a direct object to receive its action. The direct object is the person or thing that is being acted upon by the verb. In the sentence I really enjoyed, the verb is enjoyed. But what did I enjoy? The sentence doesn't tell us. It leaves us hanging a little bit. Imagine someone tells you, I really liked. You'd probably think, like what? The same idea applies to enjoyed. So, the common error here is that the verb enjoyed is used without a direct object. We need to tell the person what we enjoyed. Here are some ways we could complete the sentence correctly. I really enjoyed it. Here, it refers to something that was previously mentioned or is understood from the context. I really enjoyed the party. Here, the direct object is the party. I really enjoyed talking with you. Here, the direct object is talking with you. I really enjoyed the food. Here, the direct object is the food. I really enjoyed myself. This is a special case where enjoy can be reflexive, meaning the subject is also the object. So, when you say thank you, I really enjoyed, you should usually follow it up with what you enjoyed. For example, if someone hosted you for dinner, you might say, thank you. I really enjoyed the dinner. Or, if you went to a movie with someone, you might say, thank you. I really enjoyed the movie. Sometimes, if it's very clear from the conversation what you're talking about, you might just say, I really enjoyed it. The it acts as a pronoun, standing in for the thing you enjoyed. The key takeaway here is that the verb enjoy usually needs an object. It needs to answer the question, enjoyed what, to make the sentence complete and clear. So, next time you want to express that you had a good time, remember to include what you enjoyed. Alright, let's look at our next question on the board. Did you lose your cell phone? Read that question carefully. It's asking if someone has misplaced their phone, right? But there's a very common spelling mistake in this question that we need to learn about. The word that might look a little funny is loose. Now, loose is a real word, but it has a different meaning than what we want to say in this question. Loose is an adjective, which means it describes something. When something is loose, it's not tight, or it's not firmly held. For example, you might say, my shoelace is loose, or this shirt is too loose for me. But in our question, we're not describing the cell phone as being not tight. We want to know if someone has misplaced their cell phone, if they can't find it anymore. The word for that action, the verb meaning to misplace something, is spelled differently. It's spelled L-O-S-E, which we pronounce like luz. So, the correct way to ask the question is, did you lose your cell phone? Notice the difference in spelling. L-O-S-E, not L-O-S-E. It's easy to mix these two up because they sound very similar, but they have completely different meanings and are used in different ways in a sentence. Think of it this way. Lose, L-O-S-E, is a verb. It means to misplace something, to fail to keep something, or to be defeated in a game or competition. For example, I often lose my keys, or our team didn't want to lose the game. Loose, L-O-S-E, is an adjective. It describes something that is not tight or firmly fixed. For example, the dog broke loose from its leash, or these pants are too loose around my waist. In our question about the cell phone, we're asking about the action of misplacing it. So we need the verb lose, L-O-S-E. This is a very common error. So it's really important to remember the difference between these two words. A little trick you can use to remember is that lose has only one O, just like the word lost, which also means you can't find something. Loose has two O's, like something that is baggy or has extra space. So next time you want to ask someone if they've misplaced something, make sure you use the verb lose, spelled L-O-S-E. It will make your question clear and grammatically correct. Does everyone understand the difference between lose and loose? Let's look at our next sentence. This is an academic course. Now read that sentence out loud. It looks like a question because of a question mark at the end, right? But let's think about how we usually form questions in English. When we want to ask a question that can be answered with a yes or no, we often start the question with a helping verb, also called an auxiliary verb. Common helping verbs include is, are, am, was, were, do, does, did, have, has, had, and modal verbs, can, could, will, would, should, etc. Think about some simple questions. Is this your book? Starts with is. Are you feeling well? Starts with are. Do you like pizza? Starts with do. Have you finished your homework? Starts with have. Notice how in these questions, the helping verb comes before the subject, the person or thing we're asking about. Now let's look back at our sentence. This is an academic course. Here, the subject is this, and the verb is. The word order is the same as in a statement, subject plus verb. For example, if we wanted to make a statement, we would say, this is an academic course. The only thing that makes this is an academic course look like a question is the question mark at the end. However, in proper English, we usually change the order of the words to form a question. So, the common error in this example is using the structure of a statement, but adding a question mark at the end to try and make it a question. This can sound a little informal, or like someone is just checking if they heard correctly. The correct way to form this question is to put the helping verb is before the subject this. Like this. Is this an academic course? Now, this sentence has the typical structure of a yes/no question. Helping verb plus subject plus rest of the sentence. Sometimes in very informal spoken English, people might say this is an academic course with a rising intonation in their voice, and it might be understood as a question. But in written English and in more formal spoken English, it's better to use the correct question structure. Think of it like building with blocks. There's a certain way we usually put the blocks together to make a stable structure. In English, there's a usual way we arrange our words to form a question. So, remember to turn a statement like this is into a question that can be answered with yes or no. We usually switch the order of the subject and the helping verb. Does everyone understand why just adding a question mark to a statement doesn't always make it a grammatically correct question? It's all about the word order. All right, friends, let's look at our last sentence. Yes, I have free time. Now, read that sentence to yourselves. It sounds perfectly normal, doesn't it? And in everyday conversation, this is a very common and acceptable way to answer a question. For example, if someone asked you, do you have any time to help me? However, let's think a little bit more closely about the words free and time together. What does time mean? It's the continuous period in which events occur in succession from the past through the present to the future. And what does free mean in this context? It means not occupied or committed, available. So, when we say free time, we mean time that is available, time that is not occupied by other things like work or school. Now, here's where we can get a little bit picky about the words we use. Some people might argue that all the time we have that isn't scheduled or used for specific activities is, by definition, free. So, saying free time could be seen as a little bit redundant, like saying wet water, because water is already wet. In this very strict sense, the common error, although it's widely accepted in everyday language, could be considered the use of the adjective free to describe time, when all unscheduled time could be considered free. Instead of saying, I have free time, you could simply say, yes, I have time. This gets the same message across. If you have time and you haven't specified that it's for something else, then it's generally understood to be available or free time. However, it's really important to understand that free time is a very common and natural expression in English. Most people use it, and it's perfectly understandable. It helps to emphasize that the time you have is not already allocated to something else. Think of it like this. While technically all ice is frozen water, we still say ice water to specify the type of water. Similarly, while all unscheduled time could be considered free, we often say free time for clarity. So, while a very strict grammarian might point out the potential redundancy of free in free time, it's not really considered a major error, and you'll hear and read it all the time. Another small point to notice in the sentence is the comma after yes. When we start a sentence with yes or no, we usually put a comma after it to separate it from the rest of the sentence. So, yes, I have free time is correctly punctuated. So to summarize, the potential error here is the possible redundancy of free in free time, but it's a very common and accepted phrase. The punctuation in the sentence is correct. Any questions about this more subtle points? All right, everyone. That brings us to the end of today's lesson on common English errors. I hope you found these explanations helpful and that you now feel more confident in avoiding these mistakes in your own speaking and writing. Remember, learning takes time and practice, and even native speakers slip up sometimes. If you enjoyed this video and want to continue improving your English with us, make sure to subscribe to my channel. By subscribing, you won't miss any of our future lessons packed with tips, tricks, and explanations to help you master the English language. And if you found this video useful, please give it a like. It really helps others find our content and allows us to keep creating more videos like this for you. Finally, don't forget to share this video with your friends, classmates, or anyone else you think might benefit from learning about these common English errors. Sharing is caring, and together we can all become better communicators. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Keep practicing, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. They are a crucial part of the learning process. Until next time, take care and happy learning.